As we get closer and closer to the start of the 2023 college football season, I'm going to introduce you to some players who I think will have a huge impact in 2023. And this time around, we'll be talking about transfer quarterbacks. No, this isn't going to be a top 10 or a top 25 video. I will be doing one in a couple of days. But for now, we're going to talk about 5 underrated transfer quarterbacks. These are guys that, in my opinion, are either going under the radar or aren't getting the proper credit they deserve. The video is pretty self-explanatory, but before we get started, quickly be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new and love college football content, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I could cover next. Now, let's get started. So the first guy I want to talk about is Tayven Jackson. He's one of the more underrated transfers because he actually has a legitimate chance to start at a new Power 5 school. He's the brother of former Indiana basketball superstar Trayce Jackson-Davis, who is now with the Warriors, and while at Center Grove High School, Tayven was absolutely insane. He pretty much shattered every school record there, passing for nearly 5,000 yards and 47 touchdowns, and won 2 state championships. He ended up having over 30 Division I offers, but after narrowing his list to 7, he decided to pick Tennessee. I guess at the time, even Peyton Manning was excited about Tayven, as he asked Coach Heupel if he was going to go after him and get him. That is exactly what would happen, and Tayven was a 4-star recruit in the class of 2022. Last year, he'd arrive in Knoxville and would end up being the backup to both Joe Milton and their star quarterback Hendon Hooker. He saw action in a couple of games, but also saw the writing on the wall. Milton was going to use his extra year of eligibility, and they also had 5-star super recruit Nico Iamaleava. With both of those two coming back, Tayven saw the writing on the wall, and also saw an opportunity. He's going to get a chance to go back to Indiana, a school that's only an hour away from his hometown, and start for a program that desperately needs his help. He'll be the best quarterback to come through Bloomington since Michael Penix Jr., and at this point, he's probably going to be the starter and has a lot of upside for them. The question is, will he have the proper offensive line and coaching staff to develop him? And that is still to be determined. Also be sure to check out my full-length feature on Tayven, and I'll leave a link down below. Moving over to the Pac-12, we're going to talk about Sam Jackson, the new quarterback transfer who is headed to Cal. Growing up, Sam Jackson was always seen as somewhat of a prodigy athlete, and by the time he was a sophomore in high school, he was getting major recruiting interest. He had over 50 catches for 847 yards and 14 touchdowns as a receiver, but would eventually move to quarterback in 2019 and passed for over 1,700 yards and 16 touchdowns. Unfortunately, the 2020 season was postponed, so he is still relatively new at quarterback. In terms of where he was going to go to school, I believe he originally committed to Minnesota before he flipped to Purdue and then flipped to TCU. Honestly, that was kind of crazy. He left Naperville Central in the footsteps of Peyton Thorne and would become a 4-star recruit. He was ranked as the 32nd best quarterback and the 374th best player nationally and got that coveted 4 stars. While at TCU, he was obviously behind both Chandler Morris and Max Duggan and didn't really get a chance to do much. He saw action in 7 games as a true freshman in 2021 and ended up with 2 rushing touchdowns. He played in 5 total games last year and helped the Horned Frogs get to the national championship. With Chandler Morris returning, Jackson saw the writing on the wall and decided to head over to Cal. They lost Jack Plummer to Louisville and are in desperate need of a quarterback that can help save the program. Cal has pretty much been a wasteland over the last few years, and it's miraculous how good of a job Chase Garbers did with such little around him. I believe Jackson is definitely going to be the starting quarterback for them this fall, and 1, he's a great athlete, 2, he has a lot of potential, and 3, he should be able to start right away. Jake Spavital is now the offensive coordinator there, and he's developed guys such as Johnny Manziel, Kyler Murray, Davis Webb, Will Grier, and even Geno Smith. If Jackson can be anything like any of those players, he's in for a great season, and in my opinion, he is very underrated. The next guy I want to talk about is Kedon Slovis. You're probably all familiar with him right now, but going back in time, he went to Desert Mountain High School, and during his 2 years of playing there, he threw for over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. He got noticed by USC's staff pretty late in the recruiting cycle, and as a 3-star recruit, eventually decided to sign with USC. Going into the season, he was supposed to be the backup to JT Daniels, but after Daniels tore his ACL early on, Slovis would be thrown into the college football world pretty quickly. He ended up having an insane freshman season and will go down in USC history in some categories. He threw for 3,502 yards with 30 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. The hype was ridiculous for him going into 2020, and with a 5-1 record, he also passed for nearly 2,000 yards and 17 touchdowns in only 6 games. Slovis was on top of the world and was now projected top 10 pick for the 2022 NFL Draft. Unfortunately, he'd have a very bad 2021 season. He'd only end up playing in 9 games, throwing for 2,153 yards with 11 touchdowns and 8 picks. He saw the writing on the wall and decided to transfer to Pitt last year. He would replace Kenny Pickett, and many were hoping that Mark Whipple could get the best out of him. Unfortunately, Slovis wasn't that great. He had 2,300 passing yards, but only had 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and was nothing more than a game manager who seemingly looked like a shell of his old self. After 4 years of being a starting quarterback, he decided he's going to use his extra year and will now be starting for BYU. They just sent Jaren Hall to the NFL, and with all this experience and a little bit less pressure on his shoulders, I think Kedon could have a pretty big year, help BYU in year one of the Big 12, and get his way back into the NFL. The fourth guy I want to talk about is Cade McNamara. Coming out of the state of Nevada, McNamara was always supposed to be the next big thing, as he trained to be a big-time quarterback from the time he was in middle school. Eventually, he got to DeMonte Ranch High School, where he absolutely went off. He was a first-team All-State selection as a junior and senior, and also along with that, was a two-time Gatorade Player of the Year award winner. He's literally one of the best quarterbacks to ever come out of the state of Nevada. He was a 4-star recruit, and after originally committing to Notre Dame, he eventually flipped to Michigan. In 2019, he would redshirt, before in 2020, he'd make his first career start. This was after Joe Milton couldn't get the job done, and McNamara was supposed to be the guy in 2021. He ended up becoming a third-team All-Big Ten selection, after throwing for 2,576 yards and 15 touchdowns. He led Michigan all the way to the college football playoff. Going into 2022, they just couldn't keep J.J. McCarthy off the field. He was the former 5-star. By a quarter of the way through the season, McCarthy was the guy, and McNamara decided to enter the portal. He quickly settled on Iowa, where he's going to get a chance to start at another Big Ten school, presumably be the starting quarterback, and hopefully bring an element to this offense that Spencer Petras could never do. I think McNamara could potentially throw for 3,000 yards and 20 touchdowns, but only time will tell. It's hard to be a quarterback at Iowa. The final guy we need to talk about is Tyler Buchner. Yes, there's a chance he may not start for Alabama this fall, but if he does, he has a chance to make a huge impact in my opinion. Going back in time, he was from California and had one of the best single seasons in high school football history. He threw for 4,474 yards and 53 touchdowns, with 1,600 yards and 28 touchdowns on the ground. He decided to commit to Notre Dame, and after playing sparingly in 2021, would get the starting job in 2022. Ultimately, he only played in 13 games with 3 starts, but would end up getting hurt. At times, some people thought Buchner was extremely overrated, but the potential was obviously there. His offensive coordinator Tommy Rees left for the Alabama offensive coordinator job, so he decided to follow him. This is a huge update, and with how familiar he is with Rees' system and Buchner's potential, if he is the guy, I think he'll have a big-time season. No matter whether it's Ty Simpson or Jalen Milroe, I think all 3 of them will be great, and that is my last impact quarterback for today's video. What do you think though? What quarterback transfer did I leave out? What do you think of these 5 guys, and what player or topic should I do next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.